Right, hello everyone and welcome to the Austrian Alps and specifically to the interior of the new Aston Vantage Roadster. So what have we got here? Well, exactly what it says on the tin. It's the soft top version of the Vantage, so Aston's 911 rival, under their new CEO Adrian Hallmark, who's recently arrived from Bentley. Aston's in a process of sort of broadening out their, not so much their model range, but the derivatives of cars within each range. So they really want to be a little bit more like Porsche, where, you know, a new flavour of 911 comes along, you know, every couple of years, and there's always a reason to go shopping for a new version and keep things fresh and so on. So we've got this Roadster. It's spun off the recipe of the regular Vantage Coupe, which was recently very heavily updated. So just to run you through the basic figures, because they are pretty extraordinary these days. 565 brake horsepower from AMG's 4-litre V8. We'll get to hear a little bit more of that V8 in a short while. 590 pound-foot of torque. I mean, these are monumental figures for what remains a pretty small car. And actually, in terms of weight, Aston Martin quite rightly proud of the fact that they've managed to keep the weight gain for this convertible to 60 kilograms over the Roadster, which is a impressively low figure, in fairness. They say it's class leading, and that's the truth. Porsche does manage for the regular 911 Carrera S to keep the gain to an identical figure of 60 kilograms between coupe and cabriolet, but once you get into the realm of the 911 Carrera GTS, which is sort of much more of a Vantage rival when it comes to performance and character, you're actually talking about 80 kilograms extra if you want the cabriolet compared to the coupe. So yeah, they've done well in that sense. Mechanically, this is also quite an interesting car, because when car makers do a ragtop version, they generally have to make a lot of alterations to the chassis to maintain the coupe's sort of sense of alertness and body control, and that's because the fundamental structure loses something in the way of rigidity. Aston Martin's quite upfront about this car, and they've said that the spring rates and the damper rates and the anti-roll bars for this Roadster are identical to the coupe, and that's because they've managed to maintain such high levels of rigidity through sort of localized stiffening measures, mainly to the strut tops, but they don't actually need to go tinkering with the spring and damper rates. So that bodes well. They are very much pitching this as a Vantage coupe just with the roof down. Sounds simple, but there should be no alteration in the fundamental character of the car as they see it. So this is still quite raughty, quite animalistic, you know, got that quite electrifying turn-in that you get in the coupe. All of those things should be present and correct in this car, and we'll find out in a sec whether that's actually the case. Numbers, this car will cost £181,000, so the coupe is £165,000, so it's a fairly typical uplift on price. There's going to be a lot of Q personalisation options, starting with this car and being rolled out across other models. This is an area in which Aston Martin, again, is looking to sort of maximise its profitability with, you know, special paints, special interior options. So you expect to see a lot more of that. Elsewhere, the dials, they've made the rev counter a lot clearer. There's you know, the dials, digital dials these days, a little bit lacking in romance, perhaps, but now very clear. And crucially, there is now an ADAS shortcut button, so you can just hit this button here on the transmission tunnel, and that will take you with one push to a menu where you can take out, you know, the lane keeping, take out the radar, you know, speed limit recognition. Why would you want to do that? Anyway, you can do it all very easily, and that is music to my ears, given that those bings and bongs are becoming an increasingly unwelcome frustration in modern cars. Elsewhere, this Roadster gets its own suspension geometry, small tweaks, again, not to change the character of the car, just to ensure that the personality directly overlays that of the coupe. And there's also, I think one of the engineers was saying earlier, there's softer transmission mounts for the Roadster. Again, not to sort of soften the car, but just to ensure that everything's working in harmony, and that the difference dynamically between coupe and roadster isn't actually, readily discernible from the driver's perspective, all of which is good news. And another thing about this car, the roof actually comes down in a class-leading 6 seconds or so. So we'll just do that now. We'll pop the windows back up so the microphones don't freak out. And then we'll get to grip. So yeah, we'll move the rotary into Sport Plus and just see how it feels, starting with this very conveniently placed hairpin. Right then, this engine. So much torque. I mean, it's easy to forget what a small car this is. The Vantage has got incrementally heavier over the years, but still pretty pint-sized and nearly 600 pound-foot. It's all available so early as well. This is why you go for the Roadster. Mountains, V8. You can smell your environment as you sort of work your way through it as well. It's just puts all your senses on red alert, this kind of motoring. Absolutely nothing wrong with the way this car sounds. I'd say in a sense it almost sounds more natural with the roof down than with it up, because that sort of slight synthetic V8 woofer that they use to augment the exhaust note is just less palpable when you've got the roof down. So yeah, no excuse to keep it up. Buffeting, pretty good. I mean, this isn't an S-Class cabriolet where the sort of buffeting mitigation measures are truly freakish. I mean, this is still a sort of compact-ish sports car, but no, it's good. I mean, we're traveling at a decent lick now and winds through your hair, but it's not uncomfortable, and you can probably hold conversation fairly easily as well, so no complaints. I mean, this remains a pretty tremendous engine, even more so with the roof down. I mean, get a load of this. Dynamically, right, I mean, most of what Aston says in the official spiel is borne out in reality, because actually this car feels pretty tight and very well sorted. I mean, the fundamental balance of the thing is as per the coupe. Perhaps it's just a little bit softer at the front, but honestly it's barely noticeable. And it's that animalistic character that they've put into the Vantage. It's still here, it's very, very sporting, whereas I think the old one, still a sports car but played into sort of GT vibes. This car will do that as well, but it's got a sort of a heft and a sharpness about it that leaves you in no doubt that they are going after 911 with this car. You've got the same modes, sports exhaust here goes through a couple of modes. Damping you can put through 3 modes as well. ESP, the roads are a bit sort of patchy. They're patchily damp today because there was quite a lot of rain earlier, so we won't mess around with that too much. But you've basically got 3 modes fully on, which is actually pretty draconian, because when this car on a damp road does start to let go, it can move quite suddenly. So the standard mode locks that down quite abruptly. But then you've got an ESP track mode, which we've always thought works very well on the road. It gives you a little bit of slip, not too much. And then you can obviously go for the full ESP off, which then gives you access to the multi-stage traction control, which is always good fun. But we'll leave that for the track. We'll stick it in ESP Sport and just see what this thing will do. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's got that easy sled-like adjustability that, quite muscle car-esque, but is overlaid with a kind of precision and pedigree in the handling that you wouldn't get with any muscle car, certainly. So in that sense, this Aston very much exists in its own niche. It's quite different from a 911, quite different from a Ferrari Roma. It's got more brawn, more muscle, but it's got a lot of control, a lot of finesse, a lot of accuracy. Yeah, and very much has its own identity, which is what you want from a sort of loping V8 Aston sports car. Gearbox, I mean, this 8-speed automatics from ZF, it remains a very capable, very easy-going box when you need it to be, but equally, I mean, it's not DCT fast on, you know, upshifts and especially downshifts when you're in Sport Plus mode and really have a dagger between your teeth, but it's very, very good and perfectly in keeping with the broader role of the car and what you do with this car, you know, long distance drives and, you know, mountain passes and that sort of thing. Ride quality, very difficult to say, because the roads out here in Austria are so smooth, quite unrepresentative of British roads, but from our experiences in the coupe, actually, there is a tautness and a slight tension, and maybe it overflows into, you know, reactivity at times, but it's all commensurate with the sporting personality of the car and not something that affects the overall enjoyment. I've got to say, it is genuinely impressive how closely matched this is to the coupe in terms of its, you know, just those off-center steering response, the way it finds a balance. Up until now, the only way to really have an open-air supercar, performance car, without the drawbacks has normally been to find something with a carbon tub, but in recent years, and you see this with the Ferrari 296, you see it with the Porsche 911 as well, and now with this Vantage, you know, the engineers, the engineering, you know, school of thought, the techniques, manufacturing techniques have become so effective that you're actually in cake and eat it territory. And when you've got a car with such a fantastic engine as well, you know, if you want the Roadster, have the Roadster. There's no longer any reason to sort of stick dogmatically to the coupe if you want, you know, a really fine driver's car, as well as something that's got sort of an easygoing manner to it when you want to just settle down and do the mileage. So yeah, we'll test this up against some rivals when we get it back to the UK. Maybe Ferrari Roma Spider, maybe a 911 in the mix, but yeah, you'd expect this Aston to give a pretty good account of itself and certainly be the loudest and the most bombastic car of its clique.